What's up guys, I'm Dan Heskett, a poker mindset coach, and today I'm going to be talking to you about one of the most powerful, easiest ways to improve your productivity and win rate as a poker player. Now this concept very simply is having a schedule. That's right, it's not complicated, it's not hard, it's incredibly easy, but what percent of guys do it? In my experience with all the coaching clients that I work with on a daily, weekly basis, very few. So today I'm going to be talking about how to create a schedule, why it's important, what you need to do to make it consistent, and give you guys that tool to make it much easier for you to go take that tool back with you and start making more money at the tables. So the first reason to why you want to have a schedule and why it's so important is simply this. If you don't have a schedule, you're simply sailing through life. There's no right, there's no wrong, you're basically just doing what you feel like, when you feel like. Now that's a recipe for disaster. When you look at anyone in the working world, whether they're in business, whether in athletics, whether in any kind of competitive industry, you'll notice that they don't do things spontaneously. They do things in a structured, planned way. Do you think that Usain Bolt just trained when he felt like it, or Conor McGregor trained when he felt like it? No, these guys knew exactly when their game day was, they knew exactly how to prepare, and knew exactly what they were doing on which days. And being a poker player is exactly the same. You need to take that level of professionalism, that level of structure, and if you do, you'll realize you'll be a lot more successful. Now, another reason of having a schedule and why it's so important is simply this. If you plan for the long term, doing what you do based on feelings in the case of the days and weeks means that you're going to be playing more or less based on how you're doing, how you're running, and how things are going. That's not a recipe for success. Instead, what we want you to do is have a structure. We want you to plan a certain amount of hours a day or a week that you're going to be playing, and a certain amount of hours a day or week that you'll be studying. And not only that, but we want to break it down even more. Plenty of poker players, and I see this very often, quit early when they're losing, play too long when they're winning. Some, it's the other way around. They quit sessions earlier when they're winning, they want to protect their losses, and they play longer when they're losing, they're tilted, and they're frustrated, and they're not playing their best. So having a schedule is really important, because if you have one of those and you're using it as a tool, then you can add that structure, that discipline, and that professionalism. So how would you do that? And the first question to ask is, how many hours do you want to play a poker per week? That's the first most important question. And for many of you, this will depend on a bunch of factors. Are you playing poker full time? Is this a side hustle? Have you got other commitments like a job or school or relationships or childcare to think about? And asking yourself those questions, how much money do you want to make? How seriously are you taking this? They're all questions you need to ask yourself while adding structure to your poker grind. The second question is, what's your plan? What are your goals 6 months, a year, 2 years, maybe 5 years into the future? And working back through that to use the schedule as a tool to help you. Now, how do you do this? Well, I would say that having medium and long-term goals is crucial. And that's one of the first things you should do as poker players. Where do you want to be in those time periods? Working back to, what do I have to do this month, this week, this day to make sure that you get the results you want and you get there. And then having a constant period of review. How often are you checking what you've done? Did you hit your targets of volume that week? Did you hit your targets of study for that week? Are you happy with the way things went? Are you happy with what you've been doing? And are you getting the results you predicted? Maybe you realize you need to change something. Maybe you realize that your win rate's not as high, or you haven't been studying enough, or in order to move up, you need to actually study more and learn these different things. Or maybe you move up and the games are easier than you thought, and actually you feel like you're good enough. So having a structure in place, having a schedule in place is important, because it gives you that flexibility. It gives you that ability to look at what worked, what didn't, and what needs to change. And that, for anyone, is simply a process for success. Now, the other thing is that if you have a structure and a schedule, it's going to be really useful. Why? Because as poker players, we don't really have have to do things. It's not like someone who has a 9-to-5 job, and if they just wake up on Monday morning and it's 8 o'clock, they don't feel like going to work, they don't have to. Well, that's not the case because they get fired. With poker players, it's very different. The reason it's different is because there's no single day that you have to play poker. It's all should-dos, should have to do that. And if you're going through that, then it's really, really important to bear in mind that you have to be your own boss. You have to set the own structure, the own rules of how you're going to act. Imagine this scenario. Imagine you're just playing poker, you're doing your thing, and you haven't set any targets. And suddenly you get to having played 92 hours by the 31st of the month. And suddenly you get a call from a friend, he wants to hang out, and you go for drinks and you don't play poker that day. And that's fine, you played the 92 hours. But imagine a different scenario. Imagine a scenario where you set the target and scheduled that you wanted to play 100 hours of poker that month. And you got to the last day and you realized, hey, it's a work day, I've got 8 hours, I need to fill that in. Suddenly you're going to have the restraint to say no to the offer. And the reason is because you have a goal in place, you have a reason to say no. It makes it easier, it makes it, you have something to follow. Now, another reason why having a schedule is absolutely crucial, and now basically 80% of my private one-on-one clients are working with a schedule, is that it makes it easier for them to put that hard work in, to go to the next level, to plan and structure things in the longer term. When they're looking at what they're scheduling and what they're doing, it's going to make it a lot easier for them to make those long-term plans. And when you look back over the last 3 months, 6 months, a year, what have you been doing? What did you expect to have achieved? And what have you actually achieved? And the final thing is that it lets you make predictions and have an idea of how much you want to earn. You can look at how many hours, how many sessions you're going to play, how many days if you're a tournament player, and you can really think about that and use that as a tool and to decide how much you want to earn. Do you want to be making 500 a week, 1,000 a week, 2,000 a week? If you've got those financial goals and you've used them and you've worked back and created that structure, it makes it easy. It also takes out that decision-making process. If you schedule in poker days Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, then you know that, hey, that's the poker day. If something comes up, I don't need to make that decision. It's already been made for me. It's like having a boss, except that boss is past you that's had your long-term future best interests at heart. You know, there's a saying that I really love, and it's that people don't get what they want because they sacrifice what they want the most for what they want the most right now. If you want to lose weight, but you really want cake right now, if you want to have success at poker, but you instead go out with your friends or, you know, go drinking and then are hungover and can't play the next day, all those short-term things lead to long-term results. And so I really hope that if you like this video and you think the content was useful, think about making your own schedule. Structure it. What does every day look like? Think about when you're going to play and also when you're going to study. And finally, what does that study look like? You need to be really honest with yourself. Not all study hours are created equally. Some study hours are completely pointless. Some of them are worth their weight in gold. And so think about how many hours a week you're going to study. Most people think somewhere between 10 and 30% is good. I would go in the middle. I would say 20 to 25% is good for most people, and then changing that depending on how well you're doing. If you're crushing the games you're in, I would say go for more volume, bring that study down, increase the volume, and vice versa. If things are going badly, maybe up the study to 30, 35, maybe even 40%. So create a schedule, create that structure, give yourself that discipline, that tool that will make things easier for you moving forward and reap the rewards at the poker table. So if you like this video, I hope you like it, subscribe, and stay tuned, and there'll be plenty more content coming from me. Good luck at the tables.